get your questions. So here in a minute, when I switch from what you're currently seeing, don't worry, it's just what we're hoping to get from you is your authentic questions to us, and we'll use this as a way to track what those are, to track fast, address questions that there are in the room. Another thing is here in a minute, you'll hear and see people talking into the microphone. You see that I'm not talking into it right now. There's actually no audio for this room. The microphone here will be for the video that they're recording for KSDE. So if you are unable to hear an answer or something like that, please just let us know and we can try to restate it at the top of our lungs if we need to.
Is the Director of Secondary Education at McPherson, and we have on a panel then today our Superintendent, Gordon Moan, Middle School Principal, Brandon Simmelink, and Eisenhower Elementary Principal, Chris Allen. So they're going to be here to answer questions, and Shiloh's going to put up here a way for you to text in questions. And so we're going to run today really as a Q&A session. So we figure you guys are here to learn. We kind of want to know who's in the room. So how many of you are already Mercury schools? So we've got a contingency here that are already Mercury. How about Gemini schools? So a lot of you again. How many of you are thinking about becoming Gemini 2 schools or applying for Gemini 2? And how many are here just to hear the stories? Okay. KSDE people, I did see quite a few of you all too. So there's quite a few of you guys too. Okay, so we have a real good mixture within the room. So lots of people who are already in this process, who are just maybe a half step behind the process and are ready to go whole hog next year in the process. So what we're gonna do today is really just do some questions, have these gentlemen up here answer those for you. We want you guys to text in questions. And so we've got a couple to get started, but we really want to answer the questions that you guys have. So we'll get started with our first question, and this one will go to Mr. Moan. So why did we, McPherson USD 418, decide to apply to become a Mercury district in the first place?
Well, many of you know we were a member of the Coalition of Innovative Schools. 10 years ago in McPherson, we asked the question, what's a successful 25-year-old look like? And then Randy Watson went to Topeka and asked that throughout the state. So we really began that discussion some time ago, and we created an initiative called C Cubed in McPherson that was aimed at ensuring that students left our schools citizenship ready, college ready, and career ready. So we were in a good position. We had done a lot of that work. The change in leadership, we really felt like we needed to reignite that rocket ship. We needed to launch it again. And so it was a great opportunity for us. We were the only one of the 7 innovative schools that chose to enter Redesign. Many of them had made progress. While we'd made substantial progress, we really saw this as an opportunity. It's an opportunity to do things differently. It's an opportunity to get some help. The help that Jay and Tammy have provided us has been very, very valuable. But we just thought it was a good time to do that. And we got teacher support when we looked at, we have 6 buildings in our district, a high school, a middle school, and 4 elementaries. And this is a criteria we used. 1, you had to make sure as a principal that you could bring the required number of teachers on. And 2, as a principal, you needed to make a 3-year commitment to continue in our district in Redesign. And so by the time we did that, we came up with our middle school and Eisenhower. I think for us, beginning at the middle school level has been advantageous. For so long, high schools have dictated what middle schools ought to do, the kind of product they ought to produce and deliver to high schools. We now, as a middle school, are saying, here's this new product, high school. Figure out what you're going to do with that student that's going to look significantly different. So it's been a good choice for us.
Okay, I'm going to turn it to the 2 fellows up here. Why did you guys as elementary, or as principals, decide, yeah, I'm going to put myself out there and my staff out there and become a Redesign school? Chris?
Well, as looking at, I was a second-year principal coming in to this year, to the building that I'm in at Eisenhower Elementary School, and we had a lot of great things happening, that started a long time ago with our C Cubed initiative, but it's just a matter of taking things that are good and making them great and looking at how we provide education to our students and how we can do things differently to give them the best experiences they possibly can have and prepare them for that next level, the middle school. So I'll turn over to Brandon.
So I think Chris hit on the big parts of that, of really starting to rethink the education that we're providing for our kids, but also providing an education that's preparing our kids for a future that we don't know what it's going to look like yet. And so how do we give the kids the skills they're going to need to operate in a new world that, again, we don't know what it's going to look like. So that's exciting to me. It gives us that opportunity to really work with kids and families and community in prepping our kids.
I'm going to ask one more question, and then we'll start looking at the questions you all have. So this is really a teacher-driven process. So the idea behind KSDE here is that teachers would drive this process so it would be sustainable over time. Why do we not have teachers here with us today?
So I know one of the questions up here, and it is tied to this as well, is the amount of time that it takes for our teachers. And our building, we spend 1 full day a week. So 20% of our time is spent of school time is spent on redesign, including hours outside of school, all those things. And we just thought with spring break and a lot of days off in the month of March, that it was best for our teachers to be in the building with our kids today. So, and Mr. Allen concurs.
Mr. Vincent?
So, and we can definitely jump into this, but I think one thing, if you could talk a little bit about, because I saw someone said, how does it really work having teachers lead? But along with that, for the two of you, what have your teachers created? I mean, you got folks here who aren't intimately involved in it like we are, so what's been the product so far? What are some things maybe that you've piloted this spring that you think are going to go? So how does it really work having teachers lead? What's that been like? And then what have your teachers actually been able to accomplish so far?
Thank you, Shiloh. With the process, with our redesign team, which is comprised of 11 people from our building, which are mostly teachers, it truly is teacher-led. The discussions are so powerful, and what we've seen over this time is really a mindset shift in a lot of different areas, and I'll hit on that as I talk about some of the pilots that we have done. And so in terms of what we're doing right now and some pilots, and really we're through with a lot of the piloting phase, and we're going into our next phase of really constructing the plan for next year. What we started with is first we focused on social emotional. Quickly, I'll just share you our vision. Jaguars is our mascot. So Jaguars are ready to experience, explore, and serve. And so there's a lot of categories underneath those 3 bullets, but we wanted our kindergartners to be able to repeat that. And so underneath the social emotional piece of what we're looking at is we start every day off with what we call Jag Time, because we're Jaguars, and we start as a community. Every single person in our building is with us in our commons area, and we start off with music and movement to get our kids' day started on the right foot. We do the normal things like the Pledge of Allegiance, student-led announcements, things of that nature. It's only about 10 minutes long, but it really gives kids a sense of community feel. Every single person in the building's there except for our 2 door greeters at the front doors greeting people as they come in. So that's been a great change and something that we piloted and will continue to do next year. Along with that, with the social emotional piece, once the kids go to their classrooms, they are immersed into a morning meeting that follows a responsive classroom outline to let kids ask questions, tell the teachers what's on their mind before jumping into content. Before we started doing that, there's some classrooms that were starting content at 8:15 in the morning, and we start school at 8:06. And so some kids are not quite ready to learn at that time. So this has been a great change for us to let kids be ready to learn before jumping into the content and focusing on that social emotional piece. Another part of our pilots we are committing to project-based learning. Every teacher is implementing a long-term project before spring break, so a lot of them already completed that, and we are having every single teacher trained through the Buck Institute in project-based learning. So that is a great change. That's going to be, in terms of content and kids learning, that is going to be our staple and our core for our kiddos, is learning through projects and hands-on learning. There's just great components with that piece. Another thing that, not necessarily piloting, but what we used to share music teacher and a PE teacher in our district, and so we were able to get our music teacher full-time because of a situation in our town where we had a teacher that is qualified to teach music as a substitute, and so we hired her for the other building, and so we have our teacher full-time music teacher, and that's allowed her to collaborate with teachers on projects. She's taught Kansas history using her musical talents to some 4th and 5th graders, and she's helped teachers use music in their classrooms as well. And so that's been a great benefit for us, and it's going to help us free up some scheduling conflicts we've had. And so our goal is to also have a full-time PE teacher that then can act as a wellness coordinator for not only our kids, but for our staff as well. Pass it over to Brandon to talk about his pilots.
All right, so a lot of what Mr. Allen just talked about is similar to what the middle school has as well. We did all of our visioning work and all of that process separately, and it was interesting to see when we came together at the end, I shouldn't say the end, but after we had set our vision, it was interesting to see how our visions aligned. So the middle school is future ready through balanced personal learning, and our 3 goal areas are social emotional learning, academics, and civic engagement. So to begin with some of the pilots that we've gone through, one of them is a PAC time. Similar to Eisenhower's JAG time, our PAC time is every certified teacher has a group of 15 students or less. All of our kids have taken the ACT Tessera, which replaces the ACT Engage. The Tessera measures what I like to call those adulting skills, but those social emotional skills that we know are important for students to have when they grow up and move into our world. So in that PAC time, a question is posed every day just to start and facilitate some conversation between the students. It's focused on relationship building from student to student, student to teacher, and teacher to student. But again, it gives those students that opportunity to come into school and really get their mind ready for what school is going to be. So it's more of a soft start, but it allows kids to transition from early morning to right into academics. It just gives them that transition point to really focus on those relationships. I spoke to the ACT Tessera. All of our students and staff have taken the ACT Tessera so that they can kind of see what it looks like from a kid's perspective. So our staff has that vision, and then we'll start to implement lessons with those. So what we'll do is we'll be able to take the data that we receive from ACT, and we've started workshops this week as more of a tier 2, tier 3 instruction with the Tessera and the scores that they receive there. So again, we're also exploring Summit Learning. Summit Learning, a huge component with Summit is project-based learning. Many of our teachers have gone through PBL Slice through Summit Learning, which is a 1-day training. We additionally have sent 5 teachers to receive PBL 101, which is a 3-day training through the Buck Institute. Those teachers are in the process of implementing a pilot of a long-term project in their classes. What we've asked with them is they implement a long-term project and allow our teachers to go in and see what they're doing, how they're doing it, and really just get a firsthand taste of what PBL looks like in their classrooms. Additionally, with that, our goal will be to increase and continually get more and more teachers that 3-day PBL 101 training through the Buck Institute.
I see a couple questions that have popped up about what is happening with kiddos while the teachers are out of the classroom as often as they are. So Chris, can you handle that question? What are the kids doing while the teachers are out of the classroom?
We do have substitutes in the classroom, so that's, I did see one of the questions was, what is the biggest challenge? That's one of the biggest challenges right now, especially with our parents, knowing that the teachers are out of the classroom about 20% of the time. So that's a challenge, and that causes some issues that we've been dealing with this year. And so.
And I think that would be the same.
You know, there's 2 quotes on the whiteboard in my office that went up early. One is redesign. There's nothing more important that we're going to do this year. So we've moved redesign up in priorities. That means that we have more substitutes in classrooms than we're comfortable with. But if we don't take this window of time now to do this, we'll never get it accomplished. So are we delivering the best possible service to kids? I don't like to tell our public this, but having teachers out of the classroom 1 day a week, it's not as good as when they're in there. But we've got to take that advantage of this opportunity. And the second thing that is up there is redesign is not a tweak. And some of the things you heard our principals talk about are still tweaks. But you're going to see a significantly changed in learning environment as we go to personalized learning using Summit or whatever other platforms we use. But we really need to continue to push. There's a lot of tweaking that we can do to this system, but we also need to have core substantial change, and I think they'll talk more about that a little bit later.
So again, seeing a couple questions pop up about what's been actually redesigned. At this point in time, this is the year for us to try out things, and so the teams are really working on piloting different things they want to have be part of the redesign next year, and also a study or research time. So that's what the teams are busy doing now. So you would not walk into our schools right now and see much that looks very different than what's probably happening in your schools, except for the pilot pieces that are happening within the schools. So nothing really. So how's the actual classroom been redesigned? At this point in time, I would say it has not been redesigned. Come in August. Actually, don't come until October. We're learning that as we're headed out. As we have things in place in October, you'll be able to come and visit us, and then you will see completely redesigned classrooms. So we've had several questions pop up. One was about, I think, Gordon, this is maybe a question for you, money-wise. So some of us are having time where teachers are working outside of the school day, and some of that we're doing it through substitutes. So what are we doing if we have outside of the school day time for teachers working?
One of the fortunate things we did, we discovered in our gifts and grants line that we had about $30,000 that was undesignated. So we're spending that this year for a lot of our work. If you believe that there's no more important work, we'll figure out how we find the time and the money to do this. I always use this example. We spend thousands of dollars every year on basketball uniforms in McPherson, Kansas, and we do basketball very well. If we can find money to buy basketball uniforms, we can find money to do this work if and when it becomes a high enough priority for us. And you know, any good athletic director is not going to cut the athletic budget in McPherson for basketball. We're going to find that money. And so when this becomes that high of a priority, we'll figure that out. And it'd be nice to say we've got a very structured way and unlimited resources, but we just need to shift our money, do the spending that needs to take place, find the additional time to do that. We plan, we're going to have to negotiate some of these things, but we plan to go to the table and say, what's it take to get another X amount of minutes every day to do groups kinds of planning, professional development opportunities. So we're going to face that as it goes along. And we're hoping that we know some of the new money that we anticipate is going to have to go to that work as well.
So the second question up there about having in-service days to do this work, there's absolutely no way on earth, if you're going to be a Gemini 2 school and you're looking at this process, or even a Gemini school right now, and you're really trying to get this ready in a year's time, having your in-service time be the only time you have teachers out working on the work to actually redesign will not happen. It takes truly every week, almost every day. In fact, I've got a question for these guys, what keeps you up at night? We are constantly living this work. It's not a once a month we get together and we plan for things. It is we are trying stuff on, we are researching, we are talking, we're collaborating, we're communicating. It's happening constantly. So if you're thinking that might work for you, I'm just here to tell you that will not work. You've got to have a lot of time put aside. So one thing we talked to our teams about really early on, and our parents that came in as well, is the idea of the implementation dip. And so the research out there talks about that implementation dip. To put anything that's really long-lasting change in place, you're gonna it's gonna go like this to begin with, because you've got to take the time to do it. So we just have to know that right now that's gonna happen. In order to get us up here, we've got to go down a little bit right now, and it's uncomfortable for those parents who are thinking, my kindergartner's a guinea pig this year. They're not. It's gonna be so much better for them next year. Right now, hang with us, and we're doing the best we can. We've got good subs. We're still following exactly what we typically do with kiddos. It's just the sub is in the classroom doing that for our kids right now on 20% of the time. Chris was going to talk to you about the PD question that was up there.
I don't know where the question went, but there's a question about professional development. And what one thing that's been very powerful this year is our staff is looking to feed themselves PD instead of the one size fits all where it's really top down driven. I've had staff members that started What Do You Know Wednesdays, and they come in after school on Wednesdays and they are collaborating with themselves, the staff, and they're reaching out to other staff members at other buildings. They're even reaching out to other districts for people to feed themselves PD for what they need. So really personalizing professional development for the teachers, and that's been teacher driven. They started it on their own. And so that's driven some conversations we've had in our committees about what does professional development look like for our entire district. And so I could see that definitely changing for next year.
I think keeping that top question up there is, how are you handling staff that aren't 100% on board? You know, how many of us have staff that are 100% on board in the current system that we have now? Not very many. So I would say you probably don't ever have 100% staff on board, but we have to continually build capacity with what we're doing. Keeping in front of them, informing them, keeping those feedback loops active, not only in the process that we're in right now, but also through the implementation phases as we move into next year, will be essential just in keeping people informed and with what we're doing and how we're doing it. Mr. Allen had a question just in terms of summit learning, is that right? And on academic summit learning, how many of you are familiar with summit learning? So quite a few. That's something that we are exploring at a very high level. We're in the application process with them right now. And so summit learning it's based on the cognitive skills and the academic skills and all of those components coming together to create those habits of success for kids when they move forward. So that's something that we're looking at. With that, a large chunk of their time is in project-based learning. And then there's also some personalized learning within that as well. So on our personalized learning side, as we're looking to build our schedule for next year, we'll have a certain number of minutes that we'll need to meet in terms of how long that they have for personalized learning, but also how long they'll have to do those rich, deep learning opportunities through project-based learning.
So Summit Learning is a 4th through 12th grade platform, and we're a pre-K through 5th grade building. So we've applied for the 4th and 5th grade piece as well, so that could be streamlined and vertically aligned to the middle school. So the question is, so what about personalizing learning for our primary grades in K through 3? So we're also piloting using some programs, some online programs to help track data on a daily basis. So we're piloting things like iReady, Redbird, Dreambox, Zern, things of that nature to see what fits our needs of our building, and so that we can track data on a daily basis to see where our deficits are, and so how we can group kids to meet their needs. On that same topic, we are looking at one of the biggest things, the most satisfying things to me is the mindset shift of our staff. Currently, we have a model where we have a reading specialist and 2 reading tutors that assist our teachers in reading, and it's a good model. It's not great. I have some teachers that can't tell a parent where a student's at in their reading ability because those kids are working with somebody else. And so the teachers are realizing that and taking ownership for their reading, and they want to be the ones figuring out how do we fill those gaps for those kids. And so what we're looking at doing is taking those 3 positions and changing that into an innovation coach that would be more focused on assisting our staff in project-based learning and tracking data and using technology in the classroom. So that's been a big mindset shift for our staff. If you'd asked 2 months ago about that topic, our staff would have been throwing up their hands saying, "What do you mean we're going to change our structure of our reading program?" But now that we've had this deep discussions, it's been very powerful to listen to the teachers as we've gone through those discussions. And so I'm going to hit on another question that was up here earlier about how are we communicating with the rest of our staff and getting that buy-in, so to speak. We have 11 members on our redesign team, but obviously we have a lot bigger staff. So One thing we do, we usually meet on Thursdays, and so on Friday mornings, we have Jaguars Are Ready meetings for our staff to come in the morning so we can give them a little update of what we discussed the day before, and they can ask questions and things of that nature. We have one Redesign member every meeting summarize our meeting and make a video, and we put that video on Facebook. We also send that video to the newspaper and to our radio station so that our community is aware of what's happening. And then we've had parent nights also for our parents to keep them informed of what we're doing, so everybody's informed. But even though everybody's informed, it's really hard to stay on the same level because not everybody's a part of those deep, rich discussions that we've been having. So.
And you guys all know that about change. If you're in the room, you're having the conversations. If you're not in the room, there's no way to catch every single person up on exactly what happened with that conversation. But one of the questions up here is, which schools have you visited? This, in my mind, has been the pivotal piece of the mind shift switch in teachers, and that both of these gentlemen have talked about that mind shift piece, and that has been the most important thing. So we can go visit a school and say, we're just going to copy this and bring it back to Eisenhower Elementary School. If we haven't had a mind shift change at all, it's not going to work. And so that's, these visiting other schools has been what's really important around that. So I'm going to have these guys talk about, we have gone on several visits, and they have made a huge difference in how teachers are thinking. Because Chris also talked about the idea of taking our, basically it's our MTSS structure with those reading team and turning them into innovation coaches. That's a huge change for us. We've had that process in place for over 25 years, and we're now changing it. And we didn't say it, the teachers said it. And so also then the teachers are going to the other teachers and saying that, as opposed to Chris or myself saying, hey, we're going to do this different now. So that's been awesome to have that play out. So if you guys, the other thing on that, though, is teachers are also questioning having instructional aides and paraprofessionals in their classrooms. Is there a different way to do that? So we've been talking, money on this is supposed to be, try to be neutral on it as much as possible. So our teachers are talking about, can we take those 4 instructional aides and do something completely different, like a family advocate for our families? And so, again, that mind shift came from visiting these places. And I'll let Chris, you want to talk about places we've gone, and then Brandon, where you're going?
Sure. We already mentioned something about Summit Learning, and I was one of those people that was a little skeptical, to be honest, and so I had to see it in action. So we went to Tulsa, and we saw McClure Elementary and Tulsa Met, and some schools that are just in the beginning stages of implementing Summit Learning. So they had some great insight, and it was great to see the kids in action, because I had that vision of a kid engrossed into a computer all day. That's not at all what it was. And so I saw kids that were about at the same skill level, and they're collaborating with each other. I saw classrooms that were working on the same skills but not at the same rate, really personalizing learning. I saw teachers be able to teach at different levels. I saw the teachers also stop a whole class in the middle of it and say, okay, you need to hit on this, and how did you kids do this problem? How did you do this problem? And so just utilizing the technology to give the better experience to the kids, and in my mind, is going to give us time to really look at the data and really look at how we can use project-based learning to help enhance our educational experience. That's my biggest takeaway from that visit in Tulsa. We've also been to Epic Elementary in Missouri and Apache Elementary in Shawnee Mission, and we had a lot of great takeaways from both schools. We've had a lot of great discussions. Just recently, we're talking about what does our classroom structure look like, because right now we have two classes per grade level. We're talking about what does grade levels really mean. Do we need to have multi-age classrooms? Do we need to have co-taught classrooms? We've had teachers talking about we need to knock down walls in between our classrooms so we can co-teach. So we have those deep discussions that are really powerful from teachers that, again, it's this discussion and really committing the time to looking at what is best for kids. And so going on these trips has really been helpful, not to say, oh, we're going to do exactly what this school is doing. We need to figure out what are the needs of our kids in our community and see what can we take from each of these schools to fit our needs the best. And it's been really neat to see.
And then in addition to those, the middle school went to both of the schools in Tulsa as well, and I agree with Mr. Allen in that going in and looking at Summit, and when we went down to Tulsa, my mindset was there's no way that I want my student, my own child who's going to be going through this, sitting at a computer all day in their kennel, you know, learning off of a computer all day. And that was a mindset shift for me to see this in action. So that really highlights to me the importance of being able to go out and see and visit schools. We're leaving later this week to go out to Colorado to visit Woodland Park Middle School, and is it Cougar Run, which is so Woodland Park Middle School operates under Summit. Cougar Run is a PBL elementary school. So not only are several staff going, we're also taking some students with us so that they can see this in action and give us some feedback of, do they see themselves being able to learn in this type of a setting or this type of a situation. On the daily schedule, that's something I think that we're all looking at. I know Mr. Allen's looking at what their schedule's going to look like. We're looking at what our schedule's going to look like. What I would tell you is we're going to have larger blocks of time instead of that traditional 45 or 50-minute classes. We're setting it up to where we're going to have larger blocks of time for kids to be able to really dive in, do cross-curricular activities and projects between classes. So for us, it's going to be a change in the way our daily schedule looks and operates. But no, getting into those schools is essential.
So I was looking at that bottom question, have you piloted anything that hasn't worked? And the answer is yes, but we're still working through it. We want to give our kids, again, the best experience they can possibly have, and we're looking at how can we bring some things into our school day that really have been outside of school day, if at all, for some kids. And that's where you look at like your extracurricular, bringing in Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts to help out, 4-H, and just anybody in the community that can help enrich our kids' experiences. We ran into just a few logistical issues with this pilot that is supposed to start soon, and so we're still digging through that because we don't want to just put it on the back burner and forget about it. We know we're supposed to be through the piloting stage already in our process, but we still think it's really important. Even though we ran into some snags and some logistical problems, we're going to still keep pushing forward, even though we're a little bit behind on that, because we think it's important for our kids to have those experiences. And we're looking at how can we rearrange our school day. So again, these are just ideas that we're still looking at possibly implementing, and that's extending our school day and also extending the time our teachers can collaborate with each other. That's been a huge topic. Right now, our teachers can leave around 3:20ish. They want to stay till 4, have that part of their contract so they can collaborate with each other. And we think that'd be a great opportunity to have experiences for our kids where Boy Scouts and other outside organizations, our library coming in and teaching kids and giving them experiences that they wouldn't necessarily get when they leave at 3:06 right now in the experience. So yes, that pilot was supposed to have already started, but we ran into some snags, which we knew there's going to be a little bit of mess with this. But we're going to keep going forward because we want that experience for our kids.
So I saw a question that came up here, and I also see that there's a lot of folks in the audience that are starting to maybe be a little bit on overload. So I want to take a second here, and I want us all to think about this, because then I'm actually going to have Angie help answer this one about getting full buy-in from your community. But we've talked a lot this morning, and we want to make sure that all of your answers get addressed. The hands went up when we talked about people at different stages of redesign. Some folks are in this room are Mercury 7, some are Gemini 1, some are thinking about Gemini 2. And as we all know, when you start talking about change of anything traditional, it's going to be important that we have community buy-in. So just take 30 seconds, talk to someone next to you about maybe some systems you already have in place to build community buy-in, and then I'll put Angie on the spot to help answer how we feel like we've been able to do that. But just 30 seconds, talk with somebody. What avenues do you already have in place to build community buy-in? Ready, set, go.
I can talk about the lunchroom a little bit and something we're going to be doing after spring break.
Perfect.
Put you on the spot. We'll come back in 5 seconds.
So there was some excellent conversation that was going on, and before I turn it over, I think what I hope you'll see is that, obviously that you'll see is that redesign shouldn't require you to do too many things totally different in terms of how you're building buy-in and stuff like that. I was able to talk with some folks from Renwick who were in Gemini 1, so I'll let them share out some of the things, and then I'll kick it over to Angie to talk about how we facilitated the change in McPherson.
For our community, getting the community involved was huge to get their buy-in, because we're a small school and the teachers work hard. We kind of do our own thing, but getting out there was hard. So some of the things we did during parent-teacher conferences, we gave just a paper survey, and then we did an online survey too, and gave the parents just an opportunity to be part of it, to say what they wanted, what they valued. It was a little overwhelming because the survey was quite big and they had to answer a lot of questions, but really they were excited to do it. I think we had 47%. Yeah, I hand it back. So that was good. That was a start. One of the things too I just jumped in, really truthfully, didn't know what I was doing, but I'm a preschool teacher and I went for a PBL. We built a winter wonderland, and literally I just scribbled on a note, parents, send all the trash recyclables you can. And we made something great, but this was something we didn't expect. The kids advocated, at least in my classroom, for me. They had their grandparents coming in, their uncles, their moms and dads, because they were so proud of what they made. And I had to give up control and just step back and literally let these children do it on their own. And it was amazing. So that's just my own, what I learned as a teacher. I'll do it again, although it wiped me out. I was claustrophobic, I was irritable, I was out of control, my room was a mess. My para, I took it out on her. I was like, we can't do this. But those little faces when their eyes light up and they have grandma come in, and the grandma's like, hey, can I take a picture? You're like, that's pretty cool. So that was another thing we did. We also opened them up to meetings, to come into our faculty meetings, like the 4-H and parents. We were surprised how many actually came. I mean, dads took off work and came, and moms. So that was exciting too, because we thought they wouldn't care, but they came in and just listened. Did we do anything else? Those are some ideas.
Excellent. Thank you. Well, one of the things that came from that is when you engage your community, you have to be authentically engaging them and interested in and willing when people ask you, hey, we want to take this and we want you to come present at a community group and things like that. So I'll let Angie talk with you a little bit about our community foundation and specifically the community coalition.
Okay, so with the community involvement, and that is one of the 10 structures or pillars that's part of the redesign process, is making sure that you do have a partnership with the community and are working hard with your community. So we did the typical things. We had kids provide some input for the redesign at all of our schools, and we had parent nights where we had parents do things, parent surveys. We have probably at Eisenhower, the most used is a box, like a comment box that parents can drop things in as they come into the building. So we're doing all of those sorts of things. But then we also have what we call a community coalition. And it really came out of a pre-K. So when you said that, we were talking about using that for pre-K before redesign was announced that in May that year, or last year. Seems like so long ago, but it wasn't. So we took that group, and it's our community foundation, it's our Chamber of Commerce, it's our Circles representative, which is a group trying to get people out of poverty, it's our low income, our healthcare, it's our health foundation, all of those people that would be typical leaders around the table. And we just started talking about the redesign and how can we get people on board to help with redesign. But where we moved it was off of the schools. So it's not about us redesigning for our schools, it's about our community redesigning so all of our kids and families and our entire community is a better place to be. So the best McPherson we can possibly be. So we started with a cradle to career concept, and if you Google that, there's places like in Colorado and Massachusetts, there's different places that do the cradle to career. We found one that looked graphic that looked really nice for McPherson because we have lots of industry. And if you envision a pipeline, and on that pipeline, we start off with birth through pre-K, our K-12 system, post-secondary and training, and then an adult. So you've got the person's the pipe. And then it's insulated, and it's got a layer of insulation. That's my family, that might be my church, that might be my peer group, different entities that then insulate a person for success. And then there's a second layer of insulation. So big picture things, transportation, healthcare, mental health, some things like that a community has to wrap around and make sure it has really strong in order to have strong people within the community. So we took that as our lever, and we started then, that group started having bigger community conversations. We've had 2 of those so far and have our 3rd one later this month. And we then personally invited, like hand-delivered invitations and then phone calls to people in a bigger, broader. So we got our universities and our colleges involved. We got our industry leaders involved. We got people downtown from the chamber involved. As many people as we could think of, and had like maybe a group of 60 we invited to begin with, had a meeting with them just about the community and the schools. And none of us led it. We purposely chose people from the community, from our community foundation, and then Rebecca Lewis Pankratz, who is presenting next door, was the other person, and had them lead that conversation. And we showed parts of videos, and they really got into it. And we're very excited. And from that, we asked each of those people who came to then invite a couple people to our next meeting, hoping to grow it at that point in time. And we took the second meeting, we took that pipeline and just asked, where do you belong within this pipeline? Where do you see yourself fitting? And it's lots of different places. And then we asked the question, what's McPherson already doing around this insulation piece? And then what's missing? Like, where are the gaps in this insulation? If you could dream and we could be the best McPherson we could be, what's missing from this? We'll now take that information, and our smaller coalition group will create work groups. And we'll actually try to solve these things across our community, knowing that it's going to help us with the redesign. Again, it's not us. We're really making it a community effort, which will benefit everything that we're doing. So we've taken the back seat knowing that it's a good thing to do. And it's been really nice to watch, because we watched the movie Resilience, and then we're also doing a video series as well at our Opera House. And we watched the movie Resilience a couple weeks ago, and that has been amazing. Like, I still get goosebumps when I talk about it. We had kind of a small audience because we had an ice storm and had to reschedule. individual, but it was the right audience. Our mayor has now taken it, and he's going to do roundtable discussions around it. We're going to our police department later this week to meet with the 34 staff members there to help them understand trauma and how the brain works under trauma. So our board president is completely pumped. How can we take this out to churches and whatnot? So we got this really good group of people together to really spearhead this entire change for our community that will completely benefit everything we do with kiddos. So again, taking it off of us, putting it on the community, and it's making a difference.
Exactly 2 minutes, and there's 3 awesome questions.
Okay.
Mr. Moan can help address.
Go.
The question that asked, what's the most challenging part as a superintendent when you're overhauling the way things have been done in education for a century? Every year, 30 kids leave the cohort in McPherson High School without a high school diploma. So the way we've done things for the last 30 years or century or whatever it is hasn't worked for those 30 kids. As far as I'm concerned, it's totally unacceptable that a place like McPherson, America, would send 30 kids every year out into our community without a high school diploma. So that's simple. We've got to change the way we've done things. We've worked hard, we've done a lot of good things, but the product doesn't tell us, isn't what we need. And so we've been real insistent on that this is a substantial change. We want to honor that people have worked hard. Our teachers work hard. Our administrators work hard. Our community's invested. But if you look at the measures that we have, they're not where they ought to be. So that's been the driver when it comes to that issue. And I think also the key to this is, as you hear Chris and Brandon talk, this has to be teacher-owned. And we have to trust our teachers. Who am I to know better than a 30-year veteran in a preschool classroom how to do preschool? Heck, I'm an old high school history teacher, athletic director, and superintendent. I'm not working with preschool kids. I have to depend on those people to tell us how we best meet the needs of kids. So we've really allowed our teachers to make this transition and do this work. And then the issue that I've stayed awake about some at night is, how do we bring our board along? You know, we have a board that ranges from do it, whatever you say we'll do, to Gordon, you know I'm going to say yes, but I've got a lot of questions, to I've got a lot of questions and I don't know if I can do this. So we've got a wide range of people on our board. And at our last board meeting, our board finally said, you're telling us too much. Because every month, we meet twice a week or twice a month. So Andrew reports one meeting, Shiloh reports the next. We're an hour and 20 minutes into our board meeting talking about what redesign is. Last Wednesday night, last Wednesday night, we had a board work session, and we're far enough along. I asked Brandon and Chris to tell the board what it's going to look like next year. And we'll preface it by, it may be tweaked a little, it may be a little different, but this is what we believe you're going to see us doing next year. And then the question is, what do you need from us to be able to give the nod in late May and approve this plan? And basically, the board, I think, is going to end up here. We're going to finish this next Monday night. One, it has to hold true to the principles of C cubed. Two, it has to hold true to the principles of redesign. It has to be cost neutral, or you have to be able to show us how we're going to pay for it. And those are the guides. If they'll do that, if we show that to them, that we're true to the state vision for Kansas, we're true to the redesign structures that we've looked at, we're true to C cubed, and we can fund it, I believe we're going to get the nod from the board. And that one board member I talked about that's got to know everything, man, as she's learning, she's on fire now about Summit Learning, and that's what really helps, get some board member like that. Then of course we've got those that say, Gordon, just tell us and we'll do it. So I've worried about that our board, that we would get out ahead of our board. But they've done a nice job of doing that. But you've got to work with them to do that. What else, Shiloh? Hey, we appreciate you coming. Stop and ask questions. It's been a fun adventure. It wouldn't be possible without these 4 people. So have a good rest of the conference. Thank you.